Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today, well, it's a deep dive into the early German Renaissance, focusing specifically on the world of drawing.
Hmm.
We're really digging into the working methods, the radical innovations that came from Albrecht Dürer's legacy. We're looking at him not just as this giant of German art, but specifically as a draftsman.
Yeah.
And also how his circle, especially those artists in the Danube School, sort of turned the sketch into something new, something valuable.
That's absolutely right. Dürer is, well, you can't argue he's the greatest figure in German art history, full stop. Most people, they know the graphics, the engravings, the woodcuts.
Right? The Four Horsemen?
Exactly, Four Horsemen from the Apocalypse, or
Eh.
those incredibly detailed copper plates like Nemesis or St. Eustace. Amazing works. But today, we're focusing on Dürer the Draftsman, the sheer genius on paper and the trail he left.
And what immediately jumps out, looking at the sources, is
Yeah.
just a physical amount of paper that survived. And it really suggests an artist who, I don't know, knew his own importance even back then.
It's definitely an anomaly for the 15th century. We have evidence of nearly 1,000 autograph sheets, Dürer's own drawings.
1,000. That seems huge.
It is huge. It completely overshadows his contemporaries. Lucas Cranach the Elder, another huge name, right? We've got maybe 150 of his drawings. Albrecht Altdorfer, who's key for the Danube School later on, maybe around 120 sheets. So Dürer's survival rate, it's just staggering.
Okay, so why? Why did his drawings survive when most artists' working sketches were, just used and tossed?
Well, Dürer treated them differently. That's the key. He consciously collected them, he preserved them, he even systematized his own drawings. He saw them as a legacy, not just disposable workshop tools.
He curated himself almost.
Pretty much. He actually wrote on many of them notes, dates, the occasion, like building his own archive in real time.
And the story continues after his death in 1528, right? It wasn't just luck they survived.
No, not at all. His wife Agnes and then his brother Andres kept the collection together initially, but the real hero of the story, perhaps, is a collector.
Ah, yes. Willibald Imhoff.
Willibald Imhoff, a Nuremberg merchant, and interestingly, the grandson of Dürer's best friend. Imhoff was, well, almost obsessive. He started collecting Dürer when collecting drawings wasn't really even a thing yet. He tracked down the entire workshop's stock, bought it from relatives, former students, cataloged it all. And crucially, in his will, he explicitly forbade his family from ever selling the Dürer collection.
Which, of course, meant
They started selling it almost immediately in the 1560s. Human nature, I suppose.
naturally.
But here's the fortunate turn. Emperor Rudolf II, who was a massive art lover.
Based in Prague.
Yes, he managed to buy a really significant chunk of the collection through another artist, Hans Hofmann, and that imperial rescue mission basically secured the core collection. It ended up in Prague and eventually formed the basis of the amazing Albertina collection in Vienna.
That's incredible luck for us, historically speaking.
Yeah.
But all that selling and enthusiasm from Imhoff's relatives caused problems later, didn't it? Attribution issues.
Oh, absolutely. A major headache for scholars. To make the drawings more valuable on the market, Imhoff's relatives slapped Dürer's famous AD monogram onto tons of sheets. Originals, sure, but also copies, workshop pieces, anything that might fetch a higher price.
So for hundreds of years, figuring out what was actually by Dürer's hand versus what was just savvy 16th century branding has been a real challenge.
Exactly. Sorting out the genuine from the, let's say, enhanced pieces is still ongoing work for art historians.
Okay, let's dive into the drawings themselves. With nearly 1,000 sheets, our sources suggest they serve different purposes. 3 main functions
That's a good way to structure it. Function 1 is perhaps most obvious, the preparatory sketch.
for those famous prints.
Precisely. For his engravings and woodcuts. A great example is the Kneeling Praying Woman, a light pen drawing from around 1505, 1510. You see this characteristic, careful pen work that developed hatching. It was essential.
Because that detailed line work had to translate directly onto the wood block or the copper plate. The drawing is essentially the blueprint.
It is. And we know this specific figure, the Kneeling Woman, is compositionally almost identical to Mary in the Farewell of Mary with Christ woodcut.
From the Small Passion Cycle.
That's the one. So these drawings show he meticulously planned his compositions before ever touching the block or plate.
Okay, function 1. Prep for prints. Now, what about other uses? I was really struck by that miniature series, The Labors of Hercules. They seem different.
Ah, yes, function 2. Design for applied arts. These Hercules drawings are tiny, only about 9 centimeters across, and the technique is different too, silver point and brush. On paper, Dürer himself tinted green.
Green grounded paper.
Right. He actually brought the Hercules theme itself into German art, picked it up after his trips to Italy. He was drawing on humanist texts, Sophocles, Ovid, and also looking at things like Venetian illustrated books from the late 1490s.
But his drawings were far superior to those book illustrations. So what were they originally thought to be? Just collector's items?
For a long time, yes. They seemed like exquisite little miniatures made for an early art collector. Too finished, maybe, to be just working sketches.
But that wasn't the real story. There was reveal.
Exactly. The big reveal came, I think, early in the 20th century. They discovered these weren't just decorative items, they were actually practical projects for, well, fine minor plastic art. High-end design templates.
Templates for goldsmiths or jewelers.
Precisely. Confirmation came from photographs of a lost cup from Rodnitz Castle. This cup was decorated with cameos, small relief carvings executed exactly perfectly based on all 12 of these Hercules drawings.
Wow. So they were functional design specs, essentially.
Utilitarian projects for luxury objects, not just art for art's sake.
Okay, function 3, the studio study. This brings us closer to his painting practice. The head of an angel is a key example here.
Yes, a beautiful, large, very detailed preparatory study. The technique is fascinating. It's done entirely with a fine brush, but on paper that Dürer toned himself, usually blue or gray.
He picked that up in Venice, right? But had to make the paper himself back in Germany.
That's the story. He couldn't find the pre-tinted paper he liked, so he just started tinting his own white paper. Resourceful.
And what's striking is, even though he's using a brush, which we think of as painterly,
the result remains absolutely linear. That's classic Dürer discipline.
The line dominates.
Always. The line maintains its integrity over the tonal areas. Even with a brush on colored paper, it doesn't dissolve into just patches of tone. This specific angel head was a study for a lute-playing angel in a huge altarpiece project, Mary, Surrounded by Saints, commissioned around 1521.
A massive painting, but one that never actually got finished, did it?
No, it was never completed. But because Dürer was so meticulous in his preparation, we still have 22 of these incredibly detailed graphic studies that survived just from that one unfinished project. Amazing documentation.
Right. Let's shift gears slightly now to Dürer's immediate circle. The Dürer School. Georg Pencz comes to mind.
Pencz is crucial. He lands in Nuremberg around 1521, works directly with Dürer. And after Dürer dies in 1528, Pencz basically becomes the leading artist in Nuremberg. His drawing St. John the Evangelist really shows that powerful Dürer influence. The style is very close.
And Pencz also adopted techniques Dürer brought back, like using charcoal, which sounds basic but apparently wasn't straightforward.
Well, charcoal itself wasn't new, but using it for large, finished preparatory drawings was tricky. Dürer imported the technique from Italy, but the big problem was smudging. Initially, it was only good for light sketches.
So they needed fixative.
Exactly. The invention or refinement of glue-based fixative solutions was the key. That allowed charcoal to be fixed onto the paper. Suddenly, it became perfect for making full-scale cartoons, those precise two-size preliminary drawings for big compositions like altarpieces.
And this St. John drawing by Pencz is one of those cartoons.
Yes, it's a two-scale design for a wooden altar panel, which is now in Cologne.
But again, attribution wasn't simple here either.
Not at all. Very messy. For years, both the final painting and this drawing were confidently attributed to Dürer himself.
Because the style is so close.
Extremely close. The figure of St. John looks very much like Dürer's figures. Think of the St. John in his Lamentation painting. It actually took until the mid-20th century for scholars to definitively reattribute both the drawing and the painting to Pencz.
So Pencz starts very much in Dürer's shadow, stylistically, but he develops his own path, heavily influenced by Italy.
Yes, absolutely. He traveled to Italy twice, spent time working in Rome, saw the Sistine Chapel frescoes, and that Roman influence becomes really strong in his later work. Look at his drawing The Last Judgment.
The one once thought to be by Michelangelo.
That's the one, which tells you something about the quality and the Italianate style.
But the design itself, for a ceiling fresco, a plafond, it sounds really odd compositionally.
It's highly unconventional. Normally, in A Last Judgment, Christ is the dominant central figure.
Right, usually enthroned or judging from the center.
Pencz completely flips the perspective. It's designed to be seen from below, looking up, but the viewpoint is actually from above, as if from Christ's perspective looking down. There is no central Christ figure shown in the main space.
So, what is in the center of the ceiling then?
Open tombs and graves. That's the central motif. The resurrected are shown rising from these tombs. Around this central area, you see the saved ascending to the clouds, sinners cast down into a cauldron, the four winds from the Book of Revelation at the corners.
A ceiling dominated visually by open graves.
Hmm.
I can see why maybe a patron might have gotten cold feet.
It's very likely. The sheer novelty, the strangeness of that composition probably led to the project being abandoned. So we're left with this incredibly detailed, finished drawing for a fresco that never happened.
Okay, let's pivot again. While Pencz is working in Nuremberg, there's another major development happening, mainly in southern Germany and Austria, the Danube School.
Yes, the Danube School. It's more of a stylistic movement than a formal school, covering artists in Bavaria and Austria. And their defining characteristic is this unprecedented, really intense focus on landscape.
This is where landscape starts to become the main event, not just the background.
Exactly. Artists like Albrecht Altdorfer are credited with essentially inventing the independent landscape painting in Western art.
Creating pure landscapes with no story, no figures, maybe in the 1520s.
That's right. Altdorfer's work marks that shift. Landscape moves from stage setting to the star of the show.
And we see this even in their drawings that do include traditional subjects, like that workshop nativity.
Absolutely. In that drawing, the Holy Family is almost tucked away in a corner. The real focus is on the ruined architecture, the sense of depth, the trees, the atmosphere. Nature and buildings dominate the narrative.
It feels like they took Dürer's meticulous drawing approach, but applied it to a very different, maybe more commercial end.
That's a very sharp observation. The sources point to a fascinating market practice developing in Altdorfer's workshop and others in the Danube School.
They were actively making and repeating drawings for sale, not prints, but hand-drawn copies.
Yes. Manually duplicating drawings, often on tinted paper brown, green, were popular specifically for the open market as decorative items.
So people were buying drawings just to hang on their walls.
It seems so. Take Altdorfer's landscape with ruins drawing. It's a classic Danube School landscape on green-grounded paper. We know an almost identical version exists, but on brown-grounded paper in Budapest.
Ah, proof of replication, making variations on a theme that sells.
Precisely. It confirms they were producing these desirable landscape views in multiple versions for commercial sale.
And speaking of tinted paper, Albrecht's brother, Erhard Altdorfer, did something even more unusual with his night landscape.
Oh, that's an incredible sheet. Very rare. It's drawn on paper that's completely black-grounded.
Black paper.
Black paper, using white heightening to create the image out of the darkness. It's an exceptional example of a nocturnal scene for that period. Really pushes the technique.
And this idea of replicating drawings for sale wasn't just Altdorfer. Wolf Huber was doing it too.
Yes. Wolf Huber, based in Passau, another major figure of the Danube School, also focused heavily on independent landscapes. His landscape with bridge and castle is a good example. Often his work on white paper feels maybe more purely aesthetic, but his workshop definitely engaged in this replication practice too. We know of a copy of that exact bridge and castle landscape in Weimar.
And he even added drawn frames sometimes to make them look finished.
Right. Adding a drawn border right on the sheet helped present it as a complete picture, ready for the market, ready to be framed and hung.
What an incredible arc we've traced. From Dürer, almost curating his own genius on paper, ensuring this massive trove survived.
That sheer volume and his intention behind it.
To seeing those drawings function as meticulous templates for prints, but also as practical designs for things like, luxury cups.
The Hercules series, yeah. Utilitarian beauty.
Then his followers like Pencz, adopting new techniques like charcoal and fixative for large cartoons, pushing boundaries with projects like that very strange Last Judgment fresco design.
Even if it didn't get made, the drawing itself shows that ambition.
And finally, landing with the Danube School, where artists like Altdorfer and Huber really revolutionized things by commercializing the landscape drawing itself.
Turning it into a repeatable decorative commodity, making landscape the subject, not the background.
It really drives home that the simple sketch, the study. It was never really simple, was it?
Not at all. It was this sophisticated, valuable, often collectible art form that required technical innovation and, in turn, drove major shifts in art itself.
Which leads to a final thought. Considering how quickly workshops like Altdorfer started churning out these small, non-religious landscape drawings specifically for sale, how much did that emerging 16th century consumer demand for just, nice pictures actually accelerate the shift away from purely religious subjects in Western art?
That's a great question. How much did the market pull innovation? Something for you to think about next time you're looking closely at an old drawing or a landscape painting.